ever seen that movie where the character develops an alter ego thanks to a lot of money? You know what I'm talking about, right? Well, that's the case that we have here today. See, we reviewed the more affordable variant earlier this year, but hey, what would happen if you threw a lot of money at the car? Well, it would don a mask, so to speak. Now, this is the 2021 Fortuner LTD, and what Toyota has done to make this variant stand out from the rest of the lineup is given it a unique front clip and a bunch of other features. But the question still remains, is it more style over substance? And is this LTD really the Fortuner to get? Let's find out. Fortuner is a 2.8-liter turbo diesel that produces 201 horses and 500 Nm of torque. Yeah! So it's no surprise with that much torque underneath your right foot that it makes for a very spirited launch. Now, it's also paired with a 6-speed automatic transmission, and if that all sounds familiar, it's because it's exactly the same as on the Conquest. But in the Conquest, where it's a lot of power immediately or a lot of torque immediately, in this guy, the motor seems to be more at home at the mid-range. Although you got a lot of torque, the response is just about okay. There's really no delay naman in stop-and-go traffic. Oh, speaking of stop-and-go traffic, inside the city, we were able to do about 8.5 kilometers per liter, which is actually pretty respectable for the size of this PPV. Now, what's expected from a PPV is a bouncy ride, and to be honest with you, the Fortuner is not exempt from that. Sharper bumps are very apparent inside the cabin, more so on EDSA with all the bumps that are there. What is surprising, however, is the amount of road noise that's kept outside. Whether you're traveling at 60 kilometers per hour or 100 kilometers per hour, the wind noise is not bothersome. I'll also say this, that it's not the best ride out there, but it's a heck of a lot better than the previous generation, and that to me is actually very, very important. Now, you may expect the steering to be a bit cumbersome in a car like this, and I can't blame you. However, I'll tell you that there is weight, but it's not nearly as heavy as, say, a Montero, and that I know for a fact, man. It does a very good job at communicating whatever it is the driver needs or what is happening underneath the car, especially when you're on twisty roads. Now, when it comes to body roll, yes, you will feel it. However, I will say this, even on the high ground clearance, it's not really worrisome, and it makes for a pretty stable ride, really. Now, while on the topic of ride comfort, the price that this guy comes in, you'd expect a little bit more, something closer to that of a crossover, like say like the CX-8, which we did compare to a PPV. Unfortunately, this guy is, well, just a lot more rugged than that. However, I will say the one thing that this guy has over crossovers is that it can take a lick and keep on ticking, and plus, you won't feel so bad when you take this guy off the beaten path. But we'd like to assume that most people that are buying the LTD aren't exactly going to take it off-roading. However, that being said, it's always nice to know that the car is definitely capable of doing so if you need to push it. AutoDeal.com.ph can connect you to get the best quote from multiple dealerships near you. You can request and compare quotes from any dealership in the Philippines. Get the best deal with AutoDeal. The front space of the LTD doesn't feel super premium at all, thanks to, well, these plastics that are found here and there. It is a Toyota after all, so I'm sure that these materials will definitely last longer than the more plush ones. It's essentially the same as a G variant in here. The only difference being is that there's a lot of leather with red accents and red stitching to match it too. So really a bit better than the G variant, because really cow skin is always nice to touch. Oh, that's so mean though. Say something. Nothing? Okay. Both the driver and front passenger get power seats, although the said seats are a little bit firm. They definitely get the job done without a hitch though. The infotainment screen is 8 inches and comes with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. The screen is plenty responsive, and the 9-speaker JBL system does sound markedly better than the stock setup. But the main issue here is that the surround camera system here is kind of blurry, and the reverse camera sometimes just refuses to show up, which is really inconvenient, especially on a car of this size. Might just be a glitch on this test unit though. On top of that, you get the Toyota Safety Sense with lane departure alert, adaptive cruise control, and pre-collision system. It's pretty magical to say the least, and having all these gadgets and gizmos will cost you an arm and a leg though, since they're only available on this top-of-the-line trim. There are many selling points for many different cars, and for this particular one, for me, there are 3, and I love each and every single one of them. The first is the JBL sound system with a subwoofer in the back, as we mentioned. The second is wireless charging. Nothing big, but that for me actually works a lot. The third, this being a car with a lot of leather seats, and this is summer and the Philippines after all, this thing has got cool seats. Now to anybody, and I do mean anybody that's ever stepped into a hot automobile, especially with leather seats, knows what I'm talking about when your butt sticks to the seats. With this guy, oh my gosh, it's like ice cream for your butt. Did I say that out loud? Yes, I did, and I meant it. This thing is awesome. I love it. I never want to leave this car. In an SUV such as this, the rear seats are actually just as important as the front seats because most people that purchase this automobile use it for families, and those others that purchase it also would rather be driven rather than drive. Now back here, the headroom is nothing stellar, but it's okay for a little bit taller passengers. Not so great if you sit in the center because of the lower roof line. The toys back here are actually pretty plentiful, with a center armrest with 2 cup holders found here, bottle holders on either door with speakers. You've got cargo hooks found up front, and not one but 2.1 ampere charging points found in the center. Oh, and more importantly, you've got air vents, not just for the second row, but air vents for the third row as well, which is very, very nice. Where it's not so great is the third row, where realistically, you'd only ever put children or self-absorbed freeloaders trying to hitch a ride. Ooh, that's mean. You okay there? Another drawback the third row has is that its seats take up valuable cargo space in the back, as they don't fold flat, but rather fold up and to the side. But with all the seats folded, you do get up to 1,080 liters of cargo capacity. Now, on the exterior, the front clip of the LTD really does stand out. It's very different from the lower variants, the G, the V, and the Q. Now, the grille is blacked out as opposed to the typical chrome you'd find in cars like this. And apart from the metal fall skid plate, the rest of the bumper follows this theme as well. The side profile and rear are quite similar to those of the lower variants. The only difference being is that here you've got a 2-tone scheme and blacked out accents found all around the car. The 2-tone scheme, not the biggest fan of it. It's summer, and I do enjoy cookies and cream every once in a while, just not on my automobiles, although some will argue that it does give it a more premium look. Okay. Ground clearance is rated at 193 millimeters, and the wheels come in at 18 inches. Behind those guys are disc brakes all around. At the beginning of this review, we likened this to a very rich person with an alter ego. And in case you missed it, we were obviously talking about Batman. The question though is, at over 2,400,000 Philippine pesos, is this a Christian Bale Batman or is it a Val Kilmer Batman? I know that's kind of mean, but it's still a hell of a lot better than George Clooney and his nipples. I'd say it's more of a Michael Keaton Batman. Nothing spectacular, but not bad either. And here's the thing, I do realize that it's a bit on the expensive side, but it is the top of the line 4x4, and the amount of driver tech and safety you've got inside should get even a nod from Bruce Wayne himself.